श्री ब्रह्म संहिता। ईश्वर परम कृष्ण सच्चिदानंद विग्रह अनादिरादिर्गोविंद सर्वकारण कारणम् चिंतामणि प्रकर सद्मसुकल्पवृक्ष लक्षावृतेषु सुरभेरविपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मी सहस्रशतसंभ्रमसेव्यमानम् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं कर्म बन्धानरूपफलभाजनमातनोति कर्माणि निर्दहति किन्तु च भक्तिभाजाम् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यं क्रोधकामसहजप्रणयादिभीति वात्सल्यमोहगुरुगौरवसेव्यभावैः सञ्चिन्त्य तस्य सदृशं तनुमापुरेते गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। श्रियः कान्तः कान्तः परमपुरुषः कल्पतरवो ध्रुमा भूमिश्चिन्तामणि गणमयी तोयममृतम् कथागानं नाट्यं गमनपि वंशे प्रियसखे चिदानन्दं ज्योतिः परमपि तथा स्वादमपि च स यत्र क्षीराब्धे श्रवते सुरभिभ्यश्च सुमहान् निमेषाध्याप्यो वा व्रजते न हि यत्रापि समयः भजेष्वेतद्वीपं तमहमिह गोलोकमिति यम् विदन्तस्ते सन्तक्षिते विरलचार कतिपये। श्री श्री ब्रह्म संहिता की जय।
कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रजजनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रजजनरंजन यमुनतीरावनचारी यमुनतीरावनचारी Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Vishpad Paramams Parivrajacharya Stotra Sutta Shri Srimad Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Govardhan Leela Mahotsav Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayeet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Umagyananti Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurul Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripatamahamam Vande Shri Gurum Deenatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hare Krishna. So today we are celebrating the Govardhan Leela pastime. So Govardhan Leela pastime is one of the most discussed pastime. There are several pastimes of Krishna. Maybe you can even categorize them. There are many pastimes in which Krishna kills the demons. But there are two pastimes that are very elaborately discussed among the Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas. One is the Damodar Leela and one is the Govardhan Leela. Because these Leelas are very significant in the sense that there is a very loving exchange of rasa between the devotees and Krishna. Not so much in the other Leelas where Krishna just comes and kills a demon. Agasura, Pralambasura, Shakatasura, Trunavarta, Putana, etc. So he comes and he kills, and that's more or less it. But here in the Damodar Leela, which is also celebrated in this month of Kartik. That is considered as a Leela in which Bhakti is celebrated in the sense that the devotee becomes more powerful than Krishna in that Leela. Yashoda Mai is able to bind down Krishna to a wooden grinding mortar, and Krishna submits himself to that pastime, and then so it is celebrated as in one sense you could say supremacy of the devotees over Krishna himself. So that is one of the highlights of the Kartik Mass, and so is the Govardhan Leela. Govardhan Leela, different kinds of rasas are exchanged, different loving dealings are there. So Govardhan Leela happens, the trigger point for Govardhan Leela is Indra. Indra somehow becomes a victim of pride, arrogance and overconfidence. Prabhupada uses a very characteristic word called puffed up. I don't know in the outside world if anybody understands this word in the way we understand. We precisely understand what it means to be. When we say someone is puffed up, we know what it means. So Indra, Prabhupada uses the word puffed up in describing the mental condition of Indra. He says Indra was puffed up. That one word is enough for us to understand what's the mental condition of Indra. But then the important point to note is that though we could say Indra was puffed up or arrogant or, the equivalent word is ahankar. But the interesting point is that how does Krishna deal with him? So Krishna deals with Indra also in an extremely exemplary fashion. You could see that Krishna is very lovingly dealing with Indra. Though Indra has committed a very serious aparadh, the aparadh that Indra committed was, he created a great deal of anxiety, fear in the hearts of the devotees of Krishna who are very dear to Krishna. These devotees of Krishna more dear than what Krishna is to himself. Imagine Indra creating anxiety for Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maya. Also the cows and the calves of Vrindavan by his inconsiderate behavior. So he offended. You could say it's a classic example of what we term as Vaishnava Aparadh. But nevertheless, Krishna chose to deal with Indra in a very exemplary fashion. So the trigger point is Indra in the sense that Indra was getting a sacrifice at the end during the course of every year. All the residents of Vrindavan would gather together and offer their Thanksgiving ceremony to Indra, it used to be called the Indra Puja. So they would all gather, make a variety of sweet dishes, and a big sacrificial offering would be done to Indra, because Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Maya and the entire community in Vrindavan were Vaishyas, predominantly Vaishyas. Krishna took shelter of Yashoda Maya and Nanda Maharaj. That is not to say that Krishna is a Vaishya, nor is it proper to say that Krishna is a Kshatriya because he appeared in the womb of Devaki and to Vasudeva. Krishna is beyond all that. Krishna is Krishna. Krishna is the darling of the devotees. That's the best way we can describe Krishna. And Krishna doesn't discriminate whether a person is serving him belongs to the Vaishya or the Kshatriya or the Brahmana community. Krishna is very mercifully, kindly, lovingly disposed towards anybody who shows a loving disposition towards Krishna. So we cannot say Krishna is Vaishya. But nevertheless, he took shelter with Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. So because they were Vaishyas, they said that our existence is from agriculture and cow protection, and which happens only when there is sufficient rain at the right point of time. So, which is the department of Indra. Indra's department was to cause rain. So he's been doing it consistently, year after year, at the right time. So we need to offer him Thanksgiving ceremony. But nobody knows what Krishna knows. Krishna knows that Indra has a time for him to learn a lesson has come by. So Krishna is thinking that this is an opportune moment to teach Indra a proper lesson, so that he becomes free from this dangerous contamination called arrogance and overconfidence and so on. Now, what's the problem with being arrogant? Well, the problem with being arrogant is we tend to judge. We tend to think that myself, I am great, I am better, I am more, whatever, I am more glorious a devotee than anybody else. And Krishna doesn't like that. Krishna mentions towards the end of this Govardhan Leela, that I don't like to see my devotees being puffed up or arrogant. They should actually be the opposite. We are all descendants of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu places extra emphasis on being very tolerant. Trunadapi sunichena tarorabi saishna. So Lord Chaitanya says we should bend down. We should bend down so low that we are like the grass on the street and anybody can come and trample us and we will take it. So imagine that's the mood Lord Chaitanya wants, and Indra is up there on the Himalayas or something thinking that he's the greatest. The thing about being arrogant is that you stop being grateful, stop being careful, and you become overconfident. And then Indra goes to the extent that he challenges the devotees who are very dear to Krishna. Not only that, he even goes to the extent of challenging Krishna. Normally unthinkable. How could anybody do that? But then you see, pride is like that. Little by little, it eats you up, eats up your discrimination. So you might say Indra is proud because he had power. He was in charge of the department of rain, and then, by the way, he was also the king of all the devatas. So Indra had good reason to become arrogant. Maybe I won't become, but that's not true. Prabhupada says even an ordinary rickshaw puller can have pride. Nobody pulls the rickshaw like me. Pride is very all-pervasive. Anybody who thinks, no, I'm not going to become proud, I know, he's probably the first victim of pride. So one has to be careful. But that's a whole different topic, how to guard oneself from pride. Nevertheless, Indra was careless and he became proud. So Krishna goes to Nanda Maharaj and says, what is this yajna you're preparing for? And Nanda Maharaj explains to him that. Very reluctantly, he says, he thinks of Krishna as a 7-year-old kid. But nevertheless, because Krishna is asking in a very sweet and a very loving manner, Nanda Maharaj explains to him and says, my dear little boy, maybe you won't understand what's going on, but nevertheless, because you're asking you, I'm telling you, we do what is this known as Indra Yajna. And then Krishna questions him. He says, why Indra Yajna? This is not something Nanda Maharaj expected. So Krishna questions Nanda Maharaj and says, why do we have to do this yajna? Nanda Maharaj is surprised. He says, what's the reason? Everything happens as per karma. Everybody has their duties to do. Indra has his duty. Like that, he says. Then Nanda Maharaj becomes then he very patiently explains to Krishna, saying, no, it doesn't work like that. He is sending rain at the right time every year, and so year after year, and so we have to give him his tax, some kind of tax, something like tax. We are giving this to Indra so that he continues to do in the same way. Imagine what would our life be without rain. But Krishna won't take that also for an answer. He'll say, what's the connection between Indra and the rain? Something like that Krishna will ask. Then they all get really puzzled. What is Krishna up to? Then Krishna explains. The philosophy that Krishna explains is known as karma mimamsa philosophy. Krishna speaks about the supremacy of karma. If you do a karma properly, then things tend to work out. Well, you don't have to go out of the way to worship anybody, any devata or anybody. Shri Radha Madan Mohan Jagannath Baladev Subhadramaya Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. So Krishna says you don't have to go out of the way to worship anybody. Then then Krishna actually confuses Nanda Maharaj by saying, when it rains everywhere. It rains on the mountain, it rains in the valley, it rains on the rocks, it rains on the river, it rains in the ocean. Nanda Maharaj says, yes, it rains everywhere. So Krishna asks Nanda Maharaj a question saying, so what puja is the ocean doing? What puja is the trees doing? What puja is the rock doing? What puja is the valley doing? Nobody's doing any pujas, it's raining. So you don't have to do anything really, it will rain. This is duty bound. Indra is duty bound to send rain. It's his duty. So why are you doing all this? Actually, it says that Krishna's target was not Nanda Maharaj. Krishna's target was Indra. He wanted to infuriate Indra. Indra is sitting up there in the heaven and listening to this little 7-year-old kid trying to stop an annual yajna that was being done from time immemorial in appreciation of Indra's services. So Indra is just, like they say, every little dialogue that Krishna is speaking, Indra is coming closer and closer to become really angry. He says, who is this little impetuous 7-year-old kid who's trying to rewrite dharma and everything that's known? And by the way, Krishna's philosophy is In the strictest sense of the word, Krishna's philosophy is not correct. It's a bit like the Karma Mimamsa philosophy. But then what can we do? Nanda Maharaj and all the residents of Vrindavan love Krishna. They can't say no to Krishna. They just cannot say no to Krishna. So Nanda Maharaj actually comes up with a compromise formula. He says, all right, why don't we do one thing? Krishna, we'll let you have your way, you let us have our way. We'll take whatever ingredients we have gathered, we'll keep half for Indra and half for... But by the way, Krishna would have suggested at that point of time, we need to be practical. So Nanda Maharaj says, yes, okay, we'll be practical. What do you mean by that? So Krishna says, who's giving the cows the grass? Where are we playing whole day? We're playing on the slopes of Govardhan. The slopes of Govardhan, such nice sweet grasses coming out. There are streams and there are caves and there are valleys and there are trees and I get fruits and we're always playing. We're playing practically the whole day on the slopes of Govardhan. So I think this sacrifice should be offered to Govardhan because he's the one who's actually giving grass for our cows. So Krishna actually, Govardhan puja is a puja in which Krishna achieves many things. By the way, he also establishes that the cows have to be respected and have to be cared for very carefully, very lovingly. So Krishna says, keeps the cows in front and tells Nanda Maharaj, if cows are so important for you, cows are grazing on the slopes of Govardhan, you should offer the sacrifice to Govardhan. Nanda Maharaj then comes up with this formula, says half for Govardhan, half for Indra. Krishna says no. Krishna says no. That's when Krishna says this. Does the ocean go and worship Indra? What sacrifice is the ocean doing? What sacrifice is the mountain doing? What sacrifice is the rock doing? When it rains, doesn't it rain everywhere? Doesn't the sunshine come everywhere when it comes out? Who is sacrificing? And everybody gets completely confused. Then they say, all right. But then you see, the point is that they love Krishna. The only qualification to be a resident of Vrindavan is loving Krishna. So they don't know what to do. Nanda Maharaj looks at all his colleagues and they say, all right, let's do it. If that's going to make Krishna happy, let's do Govardhan Puja. If that's going to make Krishna happy, all right, let's go ahead and do Govardhan Puja. So Krishna wins them over because they love him, they like him so much. For them, the main thing is what makes Krishna happy. Actually, if maybe the next year Krishna had suggested, all right, year before last Indra, last year Govardhan, this year we'll worship Yamuna. Chances are all of them would have accepted to worship Yamuna because for them the main thing is keep Krishna happy. Whatever Krishna wants, whatever Krishna says, that's what we want to do. So that is the main thing for them. So that's also the mood of a devotee. Devotee wants, he does not won't let anything come in the way, neither family nor business nor anything else. From so-called material world, he won't let anything come in the way. He wants to serve Krishna, he wants to please Krishna. So Govardhan Puja is a celebration of this principle of wanting to serve and please Krishna, even at the cost of rejecting a certain portion of the Vedic scripture, that is worship of the Devatas. So Krishna, by the way, wanted to establish that there's no need to worship the Devatas. You just worship me, that's enough. So Krishna wants to, so there are many things that Krishna wants to achieve through the Govardhan Leela. But devotees always look at how the mood of Nanda Maharaj and all the residents was to see that Krishna becomes happy. Krishna becomes very, very happy. So they would think, oh, if we don't worship Govardhan, then Krishna becomes displeased. What's the point in doing this whole festival if Krishna becomes displeased? So all right, so they take whatever ingredients were gathered. There's description in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Krishna specifically tells what all should be made. He says puri, halwa, sweet rice and so on. All these should be made and we should go and we should offer this to Govardhan and worship Govardhan and thank him for being such a wonderful associate, for being such a wonderful, shall I say, friendly mountain. So they all go, they worship Govardhan. And it is said that Krishna also recommends that while the gopis are singing songs glorifying Krishna and Govardhan, there are the brahmanas who are kept in front and they're chanting Vedic mantras, offering benedictions to Govardhan as well as to all the residents of Vrindavan. So this worship goes on, a big offering is made, and finally towards the end of that puja, Krishna becomes very big in size, almost, it says he becomes big. How big? It's not described, but he becomes very big, maybe as big as Govardhan. And he says, whatever offerings the gopis brought from their house for Govardhan, Krishna accepts all of them, personally accepts them. And he says, I'm Govardhan, Govardhan is me. So he shows some kind of a non-difference between Govardhan by accepting the offerings. The gopis become thrilled. Our offering, Krishna tasted. Good. That's all they want. They wanted all the offerings that they made to be personally accepted by Krishna. So Krishna accepts them. So Krishna is hearing, Krishna is observing, Krishna is very carefully Krishna is very conscious of the desires of the devotees. Just as we are Krishna conscious, we can say Krishna is devotee conscious by reciprocation. So Krishna is very conscious of what's going on in the mind of the devotees, and Krishna knows these offerings, if he accepts, the gopis will be very happy, and that's what he does. That's exactly what he does. So the Govardhan Puja is over, and everybody is so happy. They didn't worship Indra. They worship Govardhan instead, and they're all happy. And then the Bhagavatam explains that this is the happiness formula. Happiness formula is do what Krishna asks you to do. That's it. The happiness formula is just do what Krishna wants you to do, what Krishna asks you to do. And celebrate with Krishna. So everybody becomes happy. Then they're wondering, they're also talking to each other saying, it's mystical that we used to do Indra Puja, now we did Govardhan Puja, but we seem to be very happy doing this, much more happy than we were previously. And then somebody else will say, that's because Krishna was there. That's because this is directly the personal preference of Krishna. Personal preference of Krishna. Krishna wanted us to do this and we did this, and so Krishna. So the formula is this: do what Krishna wants you to do and you'll become happy. People ignore this and try all kinds of material adjustments. That's not going to work. The real way to become happy is very simple. Just do what Krishna wants you to do. And this formula, this simple formula that residents of Vrindavan had found out a long time back, so they don't complicate their life. Just do whatever Krishna says, and they become happy. And they become very, very happy. But there's one person who's not so happy that night. And that's Indra. We all know it's Indra. Indra is boiling with anger and rage. One thing, his share of the sacrificial offering was stolen away by Krishna and given to Govardhan. The second thing is Krishna was making very, very nasty comments against Indra. He's saying, how can you say he's responsible for rain? By the way, he has nothing to do with rain. Rain will come as per karma, like that. So Indra sitting there, he thinks he's the controller of all the rain-giving clouds. Imagine what he's going through. And then he's already puffed up a little bit. So he doesn't recognize that this 7-year-old kid is that supreme personality of Godhead, who is the cause of Indra's power, who is the reason why Indra is so powerful. Somehow he misses it. So pride is a bit like that. We should be very careful. We may, if we fall victim of pride, we may turn against our colleagues, our superiors, and so on. So one should be extremely cautious. And Krishna tells that I don't want my devotees to become victims of pride. On the other hand, they should be opposite. They should bend so low that everybody can trample like a blade of grass. They should be submissive, and they should be very careful, gentle, submissive and gentle in their behavior towards the other Vaishnavas. So Indra was so angry, so he assembles the Samvartaka cloud, summons the Samvartaka cloud, and then, you know the story. He sends Samvartaka clouds to Vrindavan, and he says, you go, this is your day. You destroy Vrindavan. You just hammer Vrindavan. Now, Samvartaka clouds will hesitate a little bit, then Indra will say, I'll come with you. I'm right there behind you. You go. Now you start. So Samvartaka cloud comes there. This is not some ordinary cloud. This cloud is the cloud that gives out rain at the time of inundation. So very destructive, very high capacity to destroy. So these clouds come there to Vrindavan, and then lightning and thunder and rain. Now everybody is worried. Everybody is looking at each other, and then they somehow seem to realize that this is Indra. Indra is angry. This is the angry Indra. So angry Indra showing his power and anger. So all of them are confused, and then when it becomes intolerable, they go to Krishna. It's said that the cows come to Krishna. The calves are hiding below the cows. The cows are protecting the calves from the rain, and then they all go to Krishna and look at Krishna very lovingly. And Krishna also looks at them very affectionately, very, very lovingly and affectionately. Krishna looks at all of them, and the cows are, by their gestures, indicating that Krishna do something, the calves are suffering. Krishna is very fond of the cows and the calves, and all the residents come there, and Krishna says, all right, let's all go. Then they say, where? Govardhan. So Krishna says, let's all go back to Govardhan. They say, all right, wherever you take us. They don't know what's Krishna's plan, but they go back to Govardhan. And then once they reach Govardhan there, Krishna very mystically lifts Govardhan mountain and places Govardhan mountain on the tip of his little finger of his left hand and says, please come inside. This Govardhan today will function as the umbrella for all of you. So all of you come inside. So they'll all get inside, and Krishna says, don't worry, he won't fall off. I'll hold him. Imagine how happy Govardhan becomes. Govardhan is experiencing ecstasy that the little finger of Krishna is touching, and Govardhan is able to provide shelter. Actually, you could say this is one classic example of devotee care. And in this instance, devotee care is being provided by Krishna himself. Nowadays we talk about the necessity for devotee care, taking care of devotees lovingly, affectionately. And Krishna is exemplary in the sense that he's showing how devotee care should be performed. If you could say, he's taking the inconvenience himself, holding Govardhan up on his little finger and then providing shelter, and he's seeing that all the devotees are happy, blissful, fearless. So this is devotee care in practice. So Govardhan becomes so happy that Govardhan is providing shelter not just to Krishna, the cows, the calves, and all the devotees were so dear to Krishna. Serving. So repeatedly, Krishna at one point mentions, he says, if you worship Govardhan, Govardhan will be happy. We'll take the cows will be happy. The Vaishnavas will be happy. The Brahmanas will be happy. And I also will be happy. Krishna says that. Now, when Krishna says something like that, nobody goes beyond that, because they want Krishna to be happy. And they also know how important the devotees are to Krishna. So Krishna says, I will hold this mountain. So Govardhan becomes ecstatic. Now, by the way, the Bhagavatam explains that when it's raining, Indra is pounding with all the Samvartaka clouds are pounding with all their might. And it's almost like the raindrops, you can't say raindrops, the rain is coming, and it's almost like it's piercing with arrows. That's how fierce the rain is. Piercing like arrows and like that. So that's how fierce the rain is. But then Govardhan mountain is so ecstatic that Krishna is touching, and Krishna is engaging, and he's providing shelter to all the devotees of Krishna, the cows and the calves who are so dear to Krishna. Govardhan is feeling as if it's a shower of rose petals. It's just not worried. There's no pain. So when we are Krishna conscious and we are engaged in Krishna's service, somehow we become blissful. The material conditioning or the changing material conditions don't seem to affect us. This is perfection, actually, in one sense, that we cross over the three modes of nature and the kleshas that the three modes of nature may present to us. When we are completely engaged selflessly in Krishna's service, it's a whole different kind of a experience we go through. So Lord Chaitanya explains that the reciprocation that we get from Krishna when we serve him, that is the sweetest mellow or sweetest rasa we can taste. Lord Chaitanya explains that especially when this loving mood is free from selfishness and any other motivation other than wanting to serve and please Krishna, then it becomes very blissful. So this is the formula of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So Govardhan becomes happy, everybody becomes happy sitting there under the Govardhan. But then there's also one special aspect of this Leela. See, the gopis are always deprived, because Krishna doesn't spend all the time with them. They get to see Krishna for a few moments before he takes the cows and the calves into the forest. And they wait till he comes back, and when he comes back, they get to spend some more time with him. And then Mother Yashoda sends them back home saying, go back home, you have your families. Krishna has to rest. They don't like it. But they can't help it. They have to go back home and they're all thinking, how lucky Yashoda Maya is. She's spending so much time with Krishna, but we are not getting time. How nice it would be if something were to happen and we get time. We get all the time that we want. We get Krishna with us all the time. So they're all wishing and praying. By the way, this is also another thing that Govardhan Leela shows, that a devotee should always be wishing that when will the day come when I'll be completely absorbed in Krishna's service, without any selfishness, without any motivation. Ahaituki aprati hata. Without any break, I'll be completely absorbed. When will Krishna very mercifully shower his mercy upon me? He will tolerate all my faults, my mistakes, my blunders, etc. and tolerate all of that, and yet still give me chances to engage in his service. When will all the Vaishnavas also be so? By the way, the Vaishnavas are always merciful. We are a bag full of faults, but nevertheless they ignore all of that and continue to give us opportunities to serve Krishna. But devotee is always praying, when will the day come when I'll be completely engaged all the time in serving Krishna? So the gopis are thinking, when will we get that opportunity to be with Krishna all the time? Krishna understands. Krishna hears their prayer. Krishna is very, very careful and sensitive with respect to the prayers of his devotees. He hears all of them. He hears all of them, and Krishna reciprocates. Krishna hears the prayers of the gopis. Krishna also understands the pride of Indra. Krishna also understands that certain lessons have to be taught. One of the lessons that Govardhan Puja teaches us is that we don't worship the devatas. When it rains, they all go back to Krishna. There's no need for us to go anywhere else. One of the names of Krishna is Achyuta, which means Krishna protects, and he protects like nobody else can. Completely he protects. So Krishna is thinking, all right, so this is what the gopis want to do. How can I satisfy that? I need to satisfy that. So this Govardhan Leela, it's raining outside, and there's no other place other than stand beneath Govardhan. And if you stand beneath Govardhan, then you're seeing Krishna directly. And Krishna is affectionately, lovingly looking at each one of them and smiling back. Looking at each one of them and smiling back. Oh, by the way, you could consider that this is probably the first instance of a lockdown. If you could use that word. They were all locked down under Govardhan. Didn't have an option to come out. Right there, just stuck there under the Govardhan, because Indra was pounding. And there was Krishna. The gopis were actually wishing that, I know Krishna will probably be angry with you, but don't worry, we like what you're doing. Please don't stop. Let the rains go on for as long as you want. Because as long as the rains are there, we are with Krishna. We are looking at Krishna. And Krishna is looking at each one of us and smiling. And then it is said that 7 days and 7 nights, Krishna held it up. And nobody experienced, in that sense, hunger, thirst. Because when you're with Krishna, it's completely different. When you're serving Krishna, you effectively cross the three modes of nature, and then it's not like anything else that happens in the material world when you're chanting Krishna's name, worshipping Krishna, following the instructions of Guru, having darshan of Krishna. I mean, we're not up there yet. We don't experience the same kind of sentiment that Lord Chaitanya experiences when he had darshan of Lord Jagannath. We're not up there. We shouldn't imitate either. But nevertheless, we have to understand that when we are in the service of Krishna, Guru, Krishna, Vaishnavas, etc., this is what is very satisfying to every soul, every atom in our body. Every atom, the soul, every atom in our body, it becomes completely satisfied by this dedication that we show in Krishna's service. So neither hunger nor anything, nor are they wishing they go out or something. They're very happy to be under that kind of a lockdown. Actually, I remember the lockdown we went through. The only saving grace was those times when we had these classes, online classes, and hearing anything about Krishna would be like nectar those days. Because we were deprived of association of devotees. So to sit together and hear something, read something together or chant together was so blissful. Because Krishna, anything related to Krishna is actually blissful, is very sweet, is very nourishing in every sense of the term. So the gopis are happy, Krishna is happy, the gopas are happy, the cows are happy, the calves are happy, and Indra is getting even more tense now. That time he was angry and puffed up. Now he's becoming anxious. He's wondering what went wrong. What went wrong in my calculation? I thought he was just one of those talkative 7-year-old impetuous kid. But he doesn't seem to be that. He must be something else. Then slowly the realization comes into Indra's mind that, oh, I made a blunder. He's not some 7-year-old kid. He's Krishna, my master, my supreme master. He comes to that realization. Because it's said that the Samartaka clouds become tired of battering this small town, small village called Vrindavan. And nothing seems to be bothering the residents of Vrindavan. They're having a party underneath the Govardhan. So Indra becomes very, very anxious, and slowly the realization that he's committed a huge aparadh against his own master because of his arrogance and being carried away by his arrogance. And Prabhupada uses the word material opulence. So Prabhupada says one should be very careful about material opulence. If it is not utilized properly, then it could create the kind of problems that it created for Indra, or even more, even something worse also. So material opulence should be utilized in the service of Krishna. For that matter, even anything that we have should be utilized in the service of Krishna, in the service of Lord Chaitanya's mission. That is perfection. So Indra comes to this realization, and then he is now searching, how do I make peace with Krishna? So you could say that though Indra offended all the residents of Vrindavan, but Krishna looked at that offense in a very, I would say, charitable way, a very kind way, because it brought all of them together. And Krishna liked it because of Indra's reign. All of them were together for 7 days and 7 nights. So Krishna doesn't quite categorize it as a Vaishnava aparadh as much as an exhibition of arrogance on the part of Indra. So you could say it's an offense, but it didn't really affect Indra in a manner in which an offense should, because it brought all the residents of Vrindavan together, and they had time with Krishna. So this Leela is considered very unique in the sense that it brought Krishna together with all the residents of Vrindavan, and it fulfilled each other's, I would say, secret desire to be with Krishna, and Krishna's desire to reciprocate with all the gopis and the gopas of Vrindavan. And it gave chance for Krishna to show devotee care, to show how important the Vaishnavas are, how they should be taken care of, how we should not allow any misery or anxiety to touch them. And we should take that responsibility on ourselves, just as Krishna took the Govardhan and held her up. All inconvenience should be, but the devotees should be very peaceful and happily situated while they're serving Krishna. So Krishna took that responsibility to guard and protect all the devotees. So this Leela also demonstrates that we should be very careful in our dealings with Vaishnavas, that we don't cause anxiety, pain. Maybe there's a mistake on their part, but nevertheless we don't cause anxiety, pain, humiliation, insult or something to the Vaishnavas just because there was something wrong or there was a lapse on their part. We don't get the license to do that. That wouldn't be pleasing to Krishna, and definitely it wouldn't be pleasing to Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya is all about forgiving and like that. Lord Chaitanya's mood is very unique and different. So that's how the second phase of Govardhan Leela ends. The first phase is Krishna getting to stop the Indra Yagya. The second phase is, you could say the third phase. Second phase is actually going and worshipping Govardhan. The third phase is Indra sending rain, and all the gopis and gopas is hiding underneath Govardhan. And it is said that though there was so much rain, it's said that even before it could come down to earth, it would become vaporized. So there were neither floods nor anything. And the Govardhan mountain is feeling that she's getting a shower of rose petals on her back while she's protecting the devotees. And so the last phase is what Krishna's dealings with Indra. How does Krishna deal with Indra? So when the rain stops, then everybody starts going back to Vrindavan. Their village Gokul, trekking back to Gokul, and then they're talking about Krishna. They're discussing about Krishna, how Krishna was so extraordinary, how he kept the mountain up for 7 days and 7 nights, and it didn't seem to affect him. How could he do that? Then they're talking about what Garga Muni said about Krishna, wonderful Krishna. They spoke about how Garga Muni said that this little kid appears yuga after yuga in every yuga. He takes a different color. And then it said that wherever he appears will be very auspicious. And the people around him, Krishna, this person will keep them very happy. Will keep them very happy and blissful. And whenever he appears, he comes to establish dharma. He comes with a divine task. So they're discussing all these predictions made by Garga Muni. And they're so happy. Because when you talk about Krishna, one becomes happy. When we discuss about Krishna, it's nectar for the ears. It's the best contemplation of the mind. And if you do so in the company of non-envious devotees, it increases the pleasure of everybody. So they're talking about Krishna. But Krishna has just one unfinished work and how to deal with Indra. So Indra calls Surabhi Gomata. And Indra takes the help of Surabhi. And first Surabhi approaches Krishna. And as soon as Surabhi comes in front of Krishna, Krishna becomes very pacified. Krishna becomes very happy. He says, Mother Surabhi, why did you have to come here? If you had called me, I would have come to see you. What was the need for you to take so much trouble to come here? There was just no need. Mother Surabhi says, my dear Krishna, this Indra was carried away by his power and material opulence and arrogance, that he tried to destroy my children and grandchildren. She was referring to the cows and calves who were living in Vrindavan. And Krishna, you are the one who really protected. You protected all of them. For us, you are the real Indra. You are the real protector. He's not. You are. You are the real Indra. You're the one who protected us. So I've come here to express my gratitude and thanks to you for protecting my progeny. That means the cows and calves who are living in Vrindavan. Krishna becomes very pleased to see Surabhi. And then from behind Surabhi, Indra walks out. He's hiding behind Surabhi. And then comes out from behind Surabhi. And it says that he has this dazzling crown, which is as brilliant as the sun. And he prostrates himself and the crown, with the crown on, to the lotus feet of Krishna. His crown is resting on the lotus feet of Krishna. And it says that dazzling crown of Indra was resting on the lotus feet of Krishna. And he's begging pardon from Krishna. So Krishna is, because he has already seen Surabhi. And by the way, Krishna is like that. He very respectfully and affectionately deals with Indra. That's another very nice point we should all learn as devotees. When someone crosses the line and does some mistake, we should remember how Krishna dealt with Indra. Very carefully, very respectfully. Made sure that Indra doesn't feel insulted or humiliated or feels very hopeless or desperate or like that. Krishna deals with him very, very nicely. While he chastises, he also recognizes Indra's position as a king of all the devatas. Krishna says, don't ever become a victim of pride again. That's dangerous for you. That, I guess, is a general warning to everybody, all of us, especially in Kali Yuga, because for no reason we become proud. So Indra offers glorification of Krishna. Very nice, very sweet glorification of Krishna. And Indra offers glorification and says that for the offense that I have committed, I should have been punished in a very severe manner. But I am very grateful to you, my Lord, that you're showing so much affection in spite of my offense, and you're being very kind. And you seem to have forgiven me. You have forgiven this lapse and blunder on my part. And I understand that I went to the extent of disturbing these residents of Vrindavan who are so dear to you. Very, very dear to you. And anybody who becomes dedicated to the service of Krishna, like the gopis, will become very dear to Krishna. Anybody who becomes dedicated. You could say that's the parting lesson of Govardhan Leela, is that Krishna forgives um, and warns Indra and sends him back, saying, don't deal with anybody from a platform of pride and arrogance. Everybody deserves rightful respect for them. And then you could say the parting mood of the Govardhan Leela is that anybody who becomes dedicated to Krishna becomes very dear to Krishna. Very, very dear to Krishna. So, I mean, there's one strong statement that comes out somewhere in this whole Leela. It is said that anybody who disrespects Govardhan or doesn't observe this festival in a proper mood or way, it's something about snakes. It's said that they could be bitten by snake or something like that is there. And Govardhan also says that someone who doesn't observe this Leela or like that, Govardhan says that it's not good for them. So Govardhan Leela is one of the most discussed Leela. There's so much more we could mention, but I think we're running out of time and I want to stop here. Shri Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Govardhan Puja Mahotsav ki, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Tai Gaur Premanand.